And I truly believe that, whatever blocks we have in the chakras is going to manifest in the physical body in some way if we ignore it for too long. So that was kind of the thing that I noticed in my throat. And I was like, okay, actually, since my childhood, I never learned to speak up. I would always just try to fit in and try to please everyone else and do things that made everyone else happy instead of speaking up and saying, oh, this is actually wrong, or I believe this would be right, or, just speaking my truth. And I never did that.
Namaste. You're listening to the Savannah Podcast. Join us on an exploration of Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living for the new age. This podcast is a production of SavannahSpirit.com, the best place to shop for unique clothing, spiritual handcrafted jewelry, healing gemstones, and fair trade gifts from the Far East. Now, here's your host, Brett Larkin.
Hello, Savannah family. Welcome back to the show. Today we are talking about the throat chakra. The throat chakra is so often overlooked. And today we're going to deep dive into how you can heal this important energy center with Martina Fink. She is the go-to girl for all things glow. Her mission is to help others by sharing her love of natural beauty products, sustainable living, maintaining a healthy body, mindset, and promoting self-love and confidence. And she hosts a variety of luxury retreats around the world and coaching programs. She's also a certified health coach and really helps people live a sustainable and glowing life. And today she's going to talk to us about how she actually did some really profound healing work with her throat chakra. So I thought this would be fun for her and I to discuss together, especially if you're someone who's thinking you might have an imbalance in that area. You're not sure, or you know you do, and you want to learn some tips and tricks to bring some balance and harmony back into this area, maybe learn how to speak up for yourself. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you of how you can support the show. And one of the biggest ways is to make a purchase on SavannahSpirit.com. They have incredible gifts for the holidays for the yogi or the mindful person in your life, crystals, gemstones, jewelry, and they have a holiday gift guide. So make sure to check that out and use that code TAKE25 for $25 off your whole shopping cart. Anything in your cart if you're a new customer. And then I also wanted to let you know, I'm really excited about this, that Savannah Spirit and I have teamed up and we're giving you a really amazing 14-day yoga video series, all designed around balancing the lower four chakras. Knowledge of the chakra system helps you powerfully shift your energy, and this yoga series is going to help you hack how you feel each day by integrating this ancient science into your daily routine. These classes are taught by me, and they're only 20 minutes. We focus on the lower four chakras and their elements as a way to balance our energy, fuel our intentions, and practice self-care. So you can basically motivate and kickstart your energy with the fire classes. You can gain clarity and inspiration exploring the water element in the Sacral Chakra classes. You can de-stress and combat anxiety, connecting with Mother Earth in the Root Chakra classes, and of course, expand your capacity for love in the air classes, all about the heart chakra. So this series is called Elemental. It's designed again around the lower four chakras, and it's yours completely free. You just want to go to brettlarkin.com/elemental to get this series that kicks off on January 1st on the new year, hosted by me and Savannah Spirit. All right, now without further ado, let's begin our conversation with Martina. Martina, thanks so much for being here and coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited.
And all the way from Zurich, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. So I know you have done some healing work yourself on the throat chakra and the sacral chakra. And I'm really excited to have you on and talk about this because I think the throat chakra often gets overlooked. Like it's just not as sexy as some of the other chakras, but it's so, so important. I'm assuming that's what you found to be true as well.
Yes, that is so true. And I absolutely love the throat chakra now. I didn't love it that much a couple of years ago. But basically how this story started for me was primary school, or maybe even before. I was bullied when I was little, and I was always really good in school and got great marks. And I come from a really nice and loving family, and my parents are both musicians, and we've always had like a really harmonious childhood, my sister and I. And so when I got to school, I was like, some people don't like me and they're so mean to me, and I experienced really hard times in school, which I figured came from jealousy because I was good in school, or other things that I don't really understand. It was probably just my soul's journey to go through this. And over the course of my life, that kept coming back to me. So, then later in school, I did get some friends here and there, and the bullying stopped at some point, but I kept having this very deep feeling of not being good enough or not being worthy. And that just kept manifesting in my life over and over. So even though I wasn't fully aware of this was actually happening, or that was my deep subconscious belief, it just kept repeating and repeating. So in my job, I wasn't promoted the way I wanted to be or the way I expected it would be. I constantly had people not being honest with me and like talking behind my back. And several things happened with guys and relationships where I just always got the proof from the universe that I'm not good enough and that there's always someone better. And it's just so interesting that, those subconscious beliefs that we have from our childhood just keep coming back or just stay there in our subconscious until we actually face them. And it actually wasn't until I started my business a couple of years ago and I started working with a business coach who was actually more of like a life coach support for me than business coach only. And I had these issues with not getting clients and I kept feeling that I'm not good enough to do this business. And she kind of helped me realize those deeper fears and those subconscious beliefs of not being worthy and not being good enough. And that's when I started working on that and realized, oh my gosh, stories from my childhood are actually impacting the way I'm living my life today and the way I am running my business.
Right. Those subconscious patterns were still running the show. It's interesting you're talking about this idea of not being worthy and not being good enough, because I think of that sometimes as third chakra. And I think this gets us into an interesting conversation because I know so many people want to dive deeper into the chakras. They want to go really deep into this work. And one of the common questions I get on social media all the time, or people doing my yoga chakra challenge, right? They're like, well, which one should I focus on, right? Which chakra should I focus on? So I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit about your story of how you found yourself being blocked the way you're describing, and then how you chose to hone in on the two chakras that you decided to ultimately do some deep work with and try to heal, and how you then saw results from that.
Yeah, so clearly I was always seeing symptoms in my health in the throat. So the first thing I would get was coughs and sore throats and anything that had to do with the throat chakra. So that was the first indicator where I was like, oh, actually, there is some physical pain that I experience all the time. I should maybe look at that first. And I truly believe that, whatever blocks we have in the chakras is going to manifest in the physical body in some way if we ignore it for too long. So that was kind of the thing that I noticed in my throat. And I was like, okay, actually, since my childhood, I never learned to speak up. I would always just try to fit in and try to please everyone else and do things that made everyone else happy instead of speaking up and saying, oh, this is actually wrong, or I believe this would be right, or, just speaking my truth. And I never did that. And it was a really important lesson for me to learn. And it's something that I'm still kind of working on. And I think the other thing, the sacral chakra was really important for me as well, because that's where we basically store all traumas. And I do feel that like my past has been very traumatic on an emotional level. And I had to do so much clearing in the sacral chakra. And I think I noticed it more in meditation when I actually meditated and just went through all the chakras and really felt into them. And, you can kind of feel if it's easy to kind of spread this color in your chakras or not. If it's really difficult to kind of visualize that light in your chakra or in a specific chakra, that's kind of how I noticed that I need to do more work on the sacral chakra.
No, these are great tips. And I want to call them out for the listeners, because the first one, which I tell people as well, and is so great how you articulated it, is like, where are you feeling physical pain in your body, right? If you're trying to kind of pick a chakra to work on, or trying to kind of wonder where you want to deep dive or focus your energy, that's such a great place, is to start with the body and work in, because the chakras are like portals that go through all the bodies, physical, energetic, mental, so that's a really good place to start. And then it's really cool what you're sharing too, is that like, if you have a hard time just even connecting or visualizing one of the chakras, or like it feels a little cobwebby in your mind when you try to like think of the color in that space, that could also be an indicator that that's a place where you maybe have some work to do.
Exactly.
I love it.
The thing that helped me the most with the sacral chakra was a really beautiful visualization where I stand in the water up to my hips and just kind of visualize how the water and the waves wash out all the trauma and like breaks everything into a million pieces and just washes it all out of the chakra. And I've done that several times, probably for, I can't remember, but I'm sure for several months, to really clear all the trauma. And it's been so helpful.
So you were doing the visualization, and then was there a physical component to how you approach sort of healing either of these energy centers, like either in the yoga practice you were choosing to do, or breathing techniques or things like that?
Clearly stuff for my throat, some sort of teas or anything that helps the throat. And I've just been really mindful. When I went out, for example, I always picked a scarf, or took a scarf with me and things like that. And just always being really mindful about how I was feeling. So when I noticed, some coughs are coming, or a sore throat is coming or about to come, I just really took a moment to think about, okay, what's going on in my life that is a little bit out of balance, or where am I not speaking up? So what has definitely been a huge help for me is journaling. Yeah, really just journal about anything that has come up or that I'm feeling emotional about, and just bring it on paper to get more clarity as well. And yeah, I think I've done a lot with food too, actually. So like eating orange foods for the sacral chakra, so oranges, kaki, I don't know if you say kaki in English, but persimmon, carrots, and all these kind of orange colored things, and yeah, soups and teas and everything really warming for the throat. And I've also used essential oils as well in my meditations.
So do you have a particular oils that you like for throat and sacral specifically? Will you share them with us?
I really love the wild orange oil for the sacral chakra. And I sometimes use a lemon oil for the throat, just because lemon, or in general, citric oils are really cleansing. So I sometimes just put that on my throat to kind of clear any blocks. And it definitely helps me a lot. So
that's awesome. I love it. So can you talk us through a little bit how, because I know you mentioned journaling, which is, such an incredible tool. How did the journaling work and everything you're describing then result in you really being able to speak up for yourself? Like, I know you mentioned you weren't getting the clients you wanted to get, and, you felt like even before that, promotions weren't happening. When did you start to notice a shift? And did you have to sort of deliberately coach yourself to start speaking up more than you maybe felt comfortable with? And what was that like?
Yeah, it's definitely been a process, and I think it doesn't happen overnight. And I almost think I can't really tell you what it was. I think it was the combination of the meditation with the visualizations, using the oils, doing some physical stuff, combining it with food and journaling. So I feel like it was a combination of all of this. I couldn't necessarily say it was just the meditation that helped, So I think I really wanted to get over this, and I just tried everything I could to kind of make sure that this is going to work.
Yeah. And then when you were next in a situation where you might have stayed silent, did you just sort of like force yourself to speak up? Like, how did that go?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I think sometimes I did force myself, and I told myself, okay, I actually do need to speak up. But mostly, I think I just reflected on things for a little bit before I spoke up. So sometimes, I have a challenge with a client or with a friend or a family member, and I don't really realize that I'm not speaking up. So a day later or so, I'm like, oh, this is actually really bothering me, and I need to say it. So I really consciously take the decision to speak about it. And I did get nervous nervous several times before, saying my truth. And it's been a challenge, but it's so good when you just push yourself to do things. And I was really prepared all the time. So like whatever I wanted to say to someone that was important for me to speak up, I would always take notes and make sure I don't forget anything that I really wanted to say. So I don't know if that's a helpful tip, but that has definitely helped me make it easier to really speak up. I just always reminded myself as well that I speak my truth, almost like a mantra.
Nice. Yeah. Like an affirmation. I
Yeah.
know, because it is really hard, especially I've had the same experience where you kind of let something go in the moment and then later you realize like, oh, actually that really bothered me. I wish I had said something about that. And then the onus is really on you then to kind of clear that conversation with someone later, right? And to go back and say, hi, remember when this happened last week or this happened a couple days ago? And it can be hard because it feels like, are we rehashing something for no reason? But I think this is where like the journaling work can maybe help you get some internal clarity first. And like you said, even bringing notes to the conversation, if it's an important conversation, I think makes a lot of sense. I mean, in the business world, we prepare for meetings or, like I prepare like crazy for a film shoot. Like we do all this legwork, but then for some reason in our personal lives, we think that everything should just come easily. And that's not so much the case. Like even if you're having a difficult conversation with a parent or sibling, preparation can really pay off. Have you found that to be true as well?
Yeah, so true. It just takes away the nervousness, I think, because before I would always be really nervous and then forget half of what I wanted to say. Because I've usually prepared the conversation in my head, hours in advance, like thinking, oh, this is what I'm going to say. And this is what I'm going to say. And then when you're in the moment, you forget. And I think it's so true. Like we prepare everything in our professional lives. But then when it comes to our own lives, we're not always as prepared.
Something I think people forget about the throat chakra is that it's also associated with this idea of listening as well. Not just listening to other people with intentionality, but also listening to ourselves. So I think you've talked about that a little bit with the journaling, like being a way to sort of reflect and see how you're really feeling. As you started to speak up more and have more of these difficult conversations, did you notice a shift or any learning that happened in the way you started listening to other people as well?
That is a really good question. I think I've always been a really good listener because probably everyone who struggles with similar issues probably is, because introverts are rather good listeners and not so much big talkers. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to answer this question.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when we're introverts, we do need to focus more on speaking up than listening. But I do think sometimes it's like just because you're an introvert or just because you don't speak up a lot doesn't necessarily mean you're a great listener. It's like sometimes you're just thinking in your head a bunch of stuff and not listening to the other person at all. So for people listening who are also trying to do some work on this throat chakra area, just know that, it's not only about speaking, it's about communication in general, which means that there's a balance in speaking and receiving. How did some of it seems like obviously you wouldn't be sharing this if you didn't have some success after making these changes. And kind of how long did you really focus on these two chakras? Was it like days, weeks, months, or is it something that you're still integrating every day? Like when did sort of the process of healing your throat chakra, and I know you mentioned, working to balance sacral as well, when did it sort of feel complete, or is that still in process for you?
I think it's always still in process because we sometimes keep falling back into old patterns. But I think it took me probably about half a year or so to consciously get to a point where I'm like, oh, now I actually feel really good about these chakras. And I don't think this is like the perfect timing or whatever. I think everyone needs to really just tune in and see how they feel about their own chakras and the healing. But I would say probably about 6 months was the time that it took me to heal everything.
Yeah, that sounds like right to me as well. I think, you really do need a good chunk of time. And for people who are listening, it's like, even if you don't believe that the essential oils work, or you don't believe that, eating the same color food would, help balance the chakra, I kind of say to those folks, like, it doesn't really matter if you believe it or not, because if you're doing all those things, it's just drawing your attention to the fact that you want to make a change, that you want to heal this energy center, that you want to shift a behavior pattern. So whether you believe that a particular essential oil or something's going to change it, it's not so much the point. It's like by adding in those daily habits, it's like where your attention goes, energy flows, right? So it's just helping you make a conscious shift.
Yeah, and it's almost like placebo as well. If you don't believe in it, if you have the intention that it's going to work for you, it may still work. It will still work. But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's like the law of attraction, the law of gravity. It doesn't really matter if you believe in it or not. It's going to work anyway.
100%. So Savannah listeners, Martina's going to come back on Thursday, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about this period we're entering, or actually kind of already in if you're in the United States and you just also experience Thanksgiving. But coming up is holiday season, right? So many of us are visiting family, going out of our daily routines in order to travel, and it can bring a lot up. So we're going to kind of talk about this with Martina on Thursday from a chakra and self-healing perspective, sort of how we can really take care of ourselves specifically during this holiday time period. So make sure to tune in on Thursday to listen to that episode. I hope to connect with you then, and I'm sending you so much love. From my heart to yours, namaste.
You've been listening to the Savannah Podcast. To find out more about Savannah, go to savannahspirit.com or follow Savannah on Facebook at facebook.com/Savannah Spirit. For daily inspiration, check out our blog at savannaeast.com. Be sure to join us next week for a new episode, and thank you for listening to the Savannah Podcast.